make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Number 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Number 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. Number 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. This talks very, very closely or keenly to blue economy. And then number 15, protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainable management, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and hold and preserve land degradation and hold biodiversity loss. 16 looks at promote peaceful, inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And finally, number 17 looks at partnerships, reading, strengthen the means of implementation, and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. As I say, if you look at all these goals, they are talking to each other, they are interacting. And therefore, when most probably we are not able to achieve one, then chances are we might not achieve quite a number of them. So let's go back to our goal number 6, which looks at what we are talking today. Then I will speak a little bit more on ecological restoration. And I would say that ecological restoration is critical. And there are many, many ways in which we do this. Because if you look at ecology, and specifically within ecology, we start looking at ecosystems. And ecosystems, when we are looking at them, this is the point at which we interact with the environment. Again, if you would want to go further, we would look at the biomes within the ecosystems. Again, when we talk about biomes, we start talking about niche, that is N-I-C-E. Depending on your English teacher would say niche or niche. And this is where now you and me interact with the environment. Because that's a question we need to answer here, so that at the end of the day, what we do for the environment really, positively impacts the environment. When you look at the ecosystem, then we start looking at, the ecosystem functions. And the books and many writers will tell us that we have quite a number of ecosystem functions, one being regulatory system function, that is, regulatory function. We also have what we call provision function. And when you look at regulatory function of an ecosystem, this is an ecosystem that regulates a lot of things. So when we have a complete ecosystem, and I'm going back there so that I can explain what a complete and sustainable ecosystem is all about. This regulatory aspect is critical. One, it regulates diseases. The diseases that most probably has been affecting us all along is because we have not taken care of our environment. We have not taken care of our ecosystem. That is one function of the ecosystem, regulating diseases. It will regulate all the natural catastrophes that we see happening across board, because it has that function by itself. It regulates the cycles that we do have within that drives at what happens within the environment. We have nitrogen cycle. I know you can remember such things. We have phosphorus cycle, we have hydrological cycle, the rains and water that we enjoy. All these are pegged within that regulatory system. Then we're talking about provision, function of the ecosystem. And this is where now we depend on the ecosystem for that which we get. We get clean air from the ecosystem, we get clean water from the ecosystem, we get wood or timber from the ecosystem, we get all those things that we interact with on a daily basis so that we can be able to achieve that which we need today, tomorrow, and many years to come. all that is provisional. Then we do have cultural functions from the ecosystem. And these are many things that happen, behind us. I know to some extent we have moved, we have developed. And I want to urge all of us that we should not develop at the expense of our culture. And as young people, never be proud of you yourself if you cannot speak your mother tongue or mother language. That's what I always say. And I can speak to what I'm speaking today better in my language than the English that came with these people. When we talk about cultural functions, there are so many things that definitely happen within the cultural setup. We have, opportunity provided by ecosystem for us to pray. We have cultures that are used to pray right in the forest. We have, for example, if you go down coast, we have the Kaya forest. That's a holy forest. People, you do not just go right in there. The caliber of people who go in there, looked at king. We have people from the mountain who believe that their God rested in the mountain. We have people in the western region who looked at the lake and they would believe a lot that a lot of supernatural powers coming from God comes through the lake. This is cultural function, and a lot of activities used to happen within this cultural or ecosystem per se. We had a lot of passage of rites of passage taking place in these forests. If people wanted to to sacrifice to the gods, they would go to these forests. Ask yourself why. These are cultural functions that we get from the ecosystem, and that's why today we are talking about restoring these ecosystems. Again, when I talk about ecosystem, it is a sustainable, functioning, system. It is a system that is complete by itself and can be able to nurture and take care of itself, repair itself when need be. And that's why I say within the ecosystem, there's the biome and the niche, so that it provides opportunities for us now to interact with the environment and harvest that which we need. If you look at how we have utilized, or interacted with our ecosystems in this country, we need most probably to relook into the way that most probably we have used this reforestation. Looking at 2 million people who do not have access to clean water across the world. Again, out of all this, we are saying 1 out of 10 people across the world do not have access to clean water. So that can tell you where we are. Bearing in mind that, Kenya, we are still developing. We are still categorized in that category of developing country. I don't know until when. But again, the way we interact with the ecosystem determines its sustainability. We have had cases where forests have been, grabbed and cut down with the promise of development coming across, but they never come. We have had, times when our resources such as water have been polluted, and at the end of the day, you and me, we are quiet. So at the end of the day, as we interact with this ecosystem, I think the most important thing that we can do is to make sure that we give voice, we become the voice for these resources, and now specifically water. We need to talk, to stand high and talk about our waters and what we need to be done so that our waters can be safe. At the Wildlife Clubs of Kenya, we have done quite a number of things that is in line with ecosystem restoration and also ecological restoration. This year, until where we are, what we are, from January to June, we have planted over 20,000 trees. And we do this with schools. I say we have 10,000 members, that school membership. And what we have done, we have gone into these schools and planted as many trees as we can. One thing that has made us go this way is because we are guaranteed that the trees that we plant within these schools will be taken care of, because we make sure that these children and students adopt these trees in these schools, and they take care of these trees until the day they are graduating from that school. So with that, we have seen this number of tree seedlings planted. Because what we have always done in this country, we have always planted trees for show. We go into a place, we launch a tree planting, and we call everybody, and we plant 1,000 tree seedlings, and then we leave and we never come back. But we are advocating to move away from tree planting to tree growing, meaning that I will plant that tree and I will take care of it until it can stand on its own. That's what will impact positively to what we are saying today. A good example, 2020, the 2020, yes, yeah, 2020, we celebrated World Wetlands Day somewhere in Mau at a swamp. Who can remember that swamp? Unfortunately, I'm also a teacher. I'm a lecturer, so I keep asking my students questions. Keep asking my students questions. We celebrated this day at Enapuyapuyai swamp. That is in Mau Forest. And we went there because that is national celebration was there. And we went there because the swamp had been rehabilitated. In 2019, 2018, that swamp was dry completely. And one thing about that swamp, that is the beginning of Mara River. So if the swamp is dry, Mara River is also dry. So you will not only, most probably, deprive people of water for drinking and most probably for livestock, but also the tourism aspect. And that's why, again, in 2019, 2018, and a bit of 2017, the Great Migration was not as vibrant as it has always been. Reason being, the wildebeest now are walking on rocks across that river. Until then, people had not connected that this water comes from the mountain. And it comes from the mountain because of the trees that are there, not because of the farms and maize and cabbages that people are planting up there. It's about the trees that people are taking care of up there. And that's the time they started connecting. That swamp is wet and alive, and Mara River is swollen with water. That's how water is critical for us. We always say that water is life, but today I also want to tell you that tree is life. True or false? True. Without trees, we will not have water. Again, without water, we will not have trees, and without these two, we will not have life. Now, looking at the goal number 6, that is sustainable development, goal number 6. The question that comes in mind, how are we going to measure that this has been achieved? How are we going to measure that this has been achieved? One, there are a number of outcomes that is oriented targets that will help us measure this. One, as you move on, there is need to most probably look and see that we have safe and affordable drinking water across board. If you travel from here to the northern part of this country, to the eastern, southern, and everywhere, then there should be indicators that these people have safe and affordable drinking water. But ask yourself, here in Nairobi, this is a city, capital city, if I may call it, because we have a number of cities in Nairobi, in Kenya today. How safe are we when we are looking at our waters? Look at our Nairobi River. Have you visited there?
Yes.
How is it?
Very bad.
Very bad.
Yes. We had at falls.
Yes.
We had that environmental day.
Yes.
We had the planting trees and
yes.
also thinking of how to clean.
Exactly.
I was telling them how we can use the chemistry we have to clean that.
Exactly. Exactly. Definitely yes. If you look at that river, some years back when we had the former Minister for Environment during our late President, former Kibaki government, Mishuki. At one point he said that I look forward to swimming in Nairobi River. And I can tell you, he almost swam in that river. Almost. That river was very clean. It's about addressing the root cause. It's about talking to people and letting them understand that that which they do affects the water and how it affects the water. And those who are with me then can remember the positive energy that came on board. We used to clean that river almost every week, every weekend, and it was really, the water was clean. That river, if you go beyond the museum hill towards Lavington, the water is clean. But the minute it crosses the road there, things start happening. All this we have done. So when we talk about safe, clean drinking water, then we need to ask ourselves, what about where we are? This is the capital city. Can you go to that river and drink the water? Because that's what we used to do many years back. We go to the river, wash your hands and scoop the water with your hand and drink. If you do that today, you land at the hospital. You are dead. These are, we call them dead rivers. You know why? They have no life. Nothing can survive in that water. And all this we have done for ourselves. So it is doable to redo that which we have done. But we need everybody on board. We need everybody on board. And we need to make sure that people understand why we are cleaning this river, why we are planting trees along this river. Because planting trees or growing trees along this river alone will not help until the people themselves change their attitudes. And therefore, education, conservation education is key when it comes to conservation. Number two, another target that we are looking at so that we say we are achieving this goal is end open defecation and provide access to sanitation and hygiene. Again, look at where we are. You don't need to go far. Look where we are and tell me whether we are achieving this. We are still very, very far from it. It is achievable. But again, the commitment to achieve this is lacking. Number three, we are looking at improved water quality, wastewater treatment, and safe reuse. If you visit Carnival, famous hotel, I know we have all visited there, isn't it? No. But huwa tunaenda huko kula nini? Nyama. We go there for nyama. Next time you visit there, request them to take you to their water recycling plant. They have a wonderful water recycling plant. They have all the water coming from their, the kitchen, the bathrooms and all this. They are able to channel it and they have been able to recycle that water to clean up the water. And that water, they use it to, water the lawns. You find green grass growing and beautiful flowers. This water is coming from their recycling plant. They have, and it's done very natural. They have not used any chemical. They have not used any high technology. They have just used natural vegetation. And that water is clean. We are looking at making sure that we use our wastewaters, recycle it, and use it. We should not be using clean water to water our plants, our grass, our flowers. We need that water. But that's what you find us doing when washing vehicles using this water. But we are crying that we don't have water in this country. We need to educate our people. And wherever you go, you have to become that mouth, that voice for conservation. Number four, increase water use efficiency and ensure fresh water supply. We can only be able to do this if we for sure take care of our environment again. Number 5, implement, protect, restore water-related ecosystems. And this is where again we are talking about ecological restoration and ecosystem restoration. So today, it is a challenge for all of us to look at issues affecting water and ask ourselves, what is my ecological footprint when it comes to water? What is my ecological footprint when it comes to water? What can I do different? Most of us, we enjoy drinking water from the bottles. I'm happy today that we have the dispenser. In many conferences, you'll find bottles, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, today we are moving away from the plastics and having the glass bottles, which is a really good idea because we have polluted our environment enough. But again, ask yourself, at the end of the day, how many people will be able to afford that which is put on the table when you sit here today? Because we can do it here and in Nairobi and most probably other cities. But what about the local person away from this city and they need clean water? What happens to them? So it's a challenge to all of us to start looking outwards and asking ourselves, what can we do at an individual level? Do not wait for us. No. You start and then we join you. I start and then you join me. And for sure together we shall achieve. Finally, as I said, mine was shortly, well, just a short speech, just to challenge all of us and see what we can do. Finally, when we talk about ecological restoration, then that reminds us of the richness of ecology. Because we are not only looking at water now, we are also looking at other wildlife and other species that thrive within these ecosystems or ecological systems. When we take care of our trees and we'll plant more trees, plant more forests, because we need more and clean water, then we are also taking care of all these other species, human being involved or included. So it's all of us now to start now again diversifying and looking out, as I said, outwards and asking ourselves, what else are we needed to do to conserve that which God has given us? So today, as we go through this conference, let us know that there is work for us to do. And as Wangari Maathai said, she said this, that as you live, it doesn't matter how many years you live, but you will have done nothing until that day when you go down on your knees and plant a tree. Can we do that? How many trees have you planted this year since the year began? If you have not planted even one, it is the high time you go and plant. It is usually said that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time to do the same is today. So kindly go out there and plant and nurture this tree so that at the end of the day, you are not depending on trees that have been planted and grown by other people. You are depending on your own tree. And I can tell you here, this is factual. For you to survive, to live and go your day, to carry out your day-to-day activities, you need 7 trees growing. 7 trees growing so that you can be able to be the way you are. Yes, 7 trees. Everybody needs that as we walk around, as we do everything on daily basis. So we need to ask ourselves, how many are we cutting and how many are we planting? Yes. Have you been depending on other people's efforts, or you have for sure provided for the next generation some trees to depend on as most probably you move on? So with those few remarks, I want to leave it at that, and I want to wish all of you fruitful deliberations as you continue discussing issues around water, issues around ecological restoration and ecosystems restoration, because this is who we are. So I would most probably say that this conference today, yesterday and today, it is a conference looking at right inside at who we are and most probably how tomorrow will be. Thank you so much for listening.
Kindly, I want to request that you appreciate our guest speaker one more time. And one of us will say, the English people, that it's a coincidence, but it is not. I would say it is a God incident. It's for the reason that our guest speaker has spoken expansively and greatly. And I really love the way he has started. He has decided to go the whole spectrum to embody this conference on not just the sustainable development goal number 6 and number 13, which this conference is anchored on. He went the length and the breadth to give us the whole family and the cycle of the sustainable development, where it originated to where it is right now. And I can't reiterate all that he has said, but 2 things that have caught my attention, that the last speaker who spoke here yesterday mentioned a lot of things which we took note of. Amazingly, he has re-emphasized them. He has spoken of them again, and just that brings, you see, something, if something is said once, it is that you will take note of it. When it's said twice, it is like being emphasized, like stressing the importance of it, not just for your hearing or your second hearing or your third hearing, for so that it may be actioned, you may be challenged, knowing that the many trees that are planted out there, our lives depended on it. And peradventure, if you haven't been part of a tree planting venture at any one point in time, it is high time you took that challenge and responsibility. I want to say that as Still Environment Kenya, the co-conveners of this conference, it is ideally a call to action. We have been doing this for the longest time. I want to say with very few participants. I want to say all along by ourselves, but it has been with very few participants. So conservation being a collective responsibility, I would want to urge and call upon everyone, one of us watching on us online, on any other social media platform, or will hear of us, please check us out. I'll be making a presentation shortly later about the initiative that we have, a 1 million tree for peace initiative. We launched a month ago. We are walking the talk, and as we do that, we have a tree nursery and seedling propagation center in Kitengela, located exactly at the KAG East University. We have over 70,000 seedlings ready for planting. So the various initiatives that have been spoken here, trees for birthday, trees for peace, trees, we're not going to get these tree seedlings anywhere else. We have them in our reservoir. And I have a colleague there, Jennifer. She introduced herself. She is a testament. She's a student at African Leadership University in Rwanda, and she is our intern at the nursery. So that is her workstation for the last 2 weeks now. She's in the company of a gentleman called Jeremiah. He's from South Sudan, but he's a student also at ALU. So we are walking the talk, literally and practically. And the officer from Kenya Wildlife Club, the previous speaker, wildlife, by the many trees that we plant, not only our lives depend on them, but we also create a habitable environment for our wildlife. They depend on that beautiful environment. They depend on the waters. They depend on the many trees as a habitation for them. So we'll be having we have two more speakers lined up, seated in this hall.
Yeah,
Mr. Kakunga.
I say he is Dr. Njagi, George Njagi.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Dr. Njagi from Kenya Wildlife Clubs of Kenya. I missed out on its profound. That's why I requested, have you registered? So that we're going to walk this talk. Whatever you have challenged us to, we are not only hearers of this word and deceiving ourselves, like the Bible will say, but we want to go a step further and action the talk, because we've had a lot of profound talk in many conferences and places, and great paperwork, but zero implementation. And what he has challenged us, which we emphatically and comprehensively spoke about, we have moved from tree planting to tree growing, so that we can have a sustainable environment, not just for ourselves and for generations after us, but for the wildlife that we have in our country. And for Kenya, they say, to be confirmed, in the tourism industry is dependent on the wildlife. We have beautiful environment and everything, but most of the guests that come, visitors, they come to watch our wildlife. So if it's the highest revenue earner, I mean, how much more we should be able to have a good allocation towards that industry. Professor Mbabu, yesterday speaker, spoke and said the Department of Environment, it is not really the least funded, but its funding is fairly insignificant. Fairly insignificant. I mean, the allocation to the Ministry of Environment, it can barely do much. And so we are calling on stakeholders, not just within the borders of our country, but beyond, the UNDPs of this world, the UN environment, to really join hands with us so that we can take this thing to the next level. The realization of 10% forest cover, they say right now we're about 7.8, 7.2, whatever that may be, is doable. All we need is to be resourced, facilitated, and enabled. And the great network of youth in conservation that are here and are watching us and following us virtually, we are equal to the task, if not much more. Definitely with the help of our father and mentor, Professor Kakunga here, who is our host at this conference, Professor Mbabu with GBFA, and many other conservation and environmental agents. Allow me to request that we take a quick breather, a health break for 10 minutes or so, then we'll come back. We have next speaker speaking about climate change, one of our team Environment Kenya members, and a great, a resourceful person, young, youthful like all of us. Then we will have another speaker, the one and only. He is a champion in every right. I don't know how many of us were there or heard about it, but there's one time that we heard of the attack in our country, the bomb blast happening, the famous bomb blast. Who have ever heard about it? Yeah, people woke up like we were coming very early in the morning for the conference, and in the process around 7:38, he's walking to his place of work, and this thing happens, and many lives were lost. I think it's over 20 years ago or something, and he is one of the few survivors. If you go to the Memorial Park, it's called the bomb blast site, the cooperative house building. That structure is a reconstruction of what was there. And what initially was there was American embassy, they say. And that was the target. So many other lives were lost. And if you go to the Memorial Park inside, you'll see a wall. I don't know how many of us have been there. Been there? There's a wall with the inscription of names of people like you and me. who were casual, not really casualties, they were victims, like they lost their lives during that time. So among us is a survivor who got spared, and he took in the fact that he had a challenge, that attack left him incapacitated in a way, but he decided to challenge himself, having been given an opportunity to be alive among the many lives that were lost. He says he will live for something, and so he is a great personality, very inspirational, very challenging, and he does great things that many of the well-abled and endowed people have not done and are not doing. But above all that, he is living for conservation. He's one of our environmental champions and ambassadors. He will be speaking to us about the effects of climate change to persons living with disability. That will be his time. I said, let me call us to a health break. Just walk out. In the next 10 minutes or 15, we should be resettled so that we can have the next speaker. I call him Favor. He will introduce himself better. He will make a presentation on climate change, which is the very reason why we are here. Then we'll have lunch break. Then we'll have Douglas speaking to us. And all of us, if as many other people come and guest speaker that we'd invited, will accord them an opportunity. NEMA is represented in the house. Patricia, on behalf of the DG, NEMA, and the director in charge of education and awareness creation. She spoke to us yesterday. What we just spoke about, it is very critical. We can do basically nothing or very little without environmental education and awareness creation. But as you do that, show the way by actioning that which you have lectured people on. And that is how we have wanted to distinguish ourselves. We have a lot of eloquent and affluent speakers in places, but on action, that is where the rubber meets the road, they say. That is the defining factor between the chaff and the wheat. So we want to be doers of this very word. And therefore, in that way, this conference will have lived to realize its purpose. Is that okay? So thank you so very much. Let's take that very, very important break. We have water dispenser provided to us. And thank you for those that came with their reusable bottles. Just in the event that you don't have your catering team behind, borrow their tea or water glass. Make use of it, quench your thirst. As we prepare for the next session, thereafter we'll do our lunch break. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.